Hey, welcome to Unshaved. I'm Takesha, and this podcast came to be simply because I wanted to archive conversations between me and my mother. And because we talked about pursuing a creative project together for a long time now, I just figured starting a podcast would kind of fit the bill for both. Our lives and relationship have had many twists, turns, highs, and lows, and the way we've gotten through them always started with raw conversations. We're consistently pursuing a deeper understanding of not only each other and our relationship, but also of ourselves. If the topics and conversations explored in this space help you to navigate your journey in any way, then that's even better. So whether it's just myself or if I'm joined by my mom or other guests, you can expect content that is explorative, honest, and maybe even just a little bit outside the lines. Welcome to Unshaved. Thank you to those of you who are returning listeners, as well as to those of you tuning in for the first time. In the second half of this episode, Start From Where We Are, you will hear my mother and I reflecting on a challenging time in our relationship where I had the realization that love and the ability to communicate weren't sustainable enough for our relationship to grow without corrective actions. Also, we express how we've learned to be vulnerable with each other as we navigate the unique layers of our relationship in order for even more positive attributes to blossom. I felt like it was just borrowed time, like the life that I was living, it wasn't one that I was being provided through my parents or anything like that, that cushion of support. It felt like at any day, my life could very well change, and it drastically did when Mama died. That was when, the sheltering that was in place completely crumbled. And that's when I had to deal with life in a different way. And I was 11.
I know that was a very hard time for both of us. I lost my mother. You lost your grandmother, your main caregiver, and I was lost as well. I didn't know how to comfort you at that time. I was at the height of my addiction. My defense was to run.
Mm.
That's how I dealt with things then. Just ran even deeper to the problem, and that's what I did. I remember shortly after that, I got incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a lot of pain, and if it makes any difference, I can remember laying in my cell crying, and because of the pain that I was in, and then knowing the pain that you were in, because you lost, like I said, your grandmother, your main caregiver.
And she was like a mother,
Yes, absolutely. And it took a while for me to really realize that I was not being responsible, because honestly, for the longest time, because I chose not to carry you out with me in the chaos that I was in, because I left you with my mother, I thought I was being responsible, because I had a home, which was my mother's home that I was living, and she took care of you. So I felt at that time I was being responsible.
Well, I think that is a level of responsibility, Ma. Like you didn't, I mean, I think it would have been highly irresponsible if you would have.
I refused to carry you out in the midst of the confusion and chaos that I was subjecting myself to. And I just felt it was safe to leave you there. But I was being irresponsible, Keisha. I was.
Yeah, of
I
course,
didn't.
to some degree. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it would have been a whole nother level of irresponsibility to drag me through it with you to that level, right? That's all I was saying.
Okay, well, yes, you're right. Like in that sense, but you know, since I've been in recovery, Keisha, I had to make a lot of admittance. You know, I had to admit a lot of painful things that hurt that I did in order to heal and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really one day at a time, is how I do this. And still, we're still getting through. And we both know that what has saved us has been what I've done early on with you, and that was to allow you to have a voice.
Yeah. And when it became too much for me, like after, because you were incarcerated for a little while, but I believe by the time, uh, by the end of eighth grade, you were released. I remember when you called one morning and it didn't proceed. The operator didn't introduce the call. And I was like, oh my God, you're home. I was super happy about that. Um, but give me a second. I had a point to make about this. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the issue here was I remember going into another issue, right? So
Right.
you were home and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with you. I didn't see you a lot, but we talked, of course. And this was also a period of time where I was moving from one side of my family to another side of my family. And there was new stress with that, of course, because it's a different environment for me, to some degree. And well, this was like my second move within a couple of years, right? And the dynamics were just a little bit different, when I was living with my father and getting to know him on a day-to-day basis, you know. But I remember one of my issues, or one of the things that was brought up, um, was your inconsistency, because at this point there may be months that I didn't hear from you. And I remember I was in ninth grade. I was about 14 years old, and so you were finally home, and I was elated by that. But you had issues with the fact that you couldn't provide for me the way you would want to provide for me, and you felt like my needs were being taken care of. So you checking in every now and then would be fine. But then every now and then might turn into months. And I didn't know where you were. I didn't know the next time I would hear from you. And I remember it being brought to my attention about your inconsistency. And it was just adding to my level of stress because I wanted to defend you, but I was depressed. I was going through a lot of new changes. I didn't have um, someone to really talk about these things with as far as an adult, just my peers. You know, back then, I don't like therapy wasn't an option. It wasn't presented.
Right.
My anger or whatever I was feeling, it just was like, oh, she just doesn't care, or she has an attitude. Nothing about what I was actually really going through was being addressed in any real way. And not to take credit from anybody who showed love and support, or took any kind of care for me, but I was being cared for in a material way, but not necessarily on an emotional level.
Yes.
And I remember having this conversation with you because I was a little fed up. And I just said, Ma, either you're going to stick around or just stay gone. I'm tired of worrying about you, wondering if you're okay, if you're not. Am I going to, I didn't know if you were out there dead in the streets somewhere, because there was a time, Mom, when I really thought that I might lose you to your addiction. And on top of everything that I was experiencing as a young person, I just didn't have the energy to continue to go and to battle this stress. I just said in my mind, and I'm not saying that this is reasonable. It was just my 14-year-old mind, what I thought would help my situation. I was just like, look, either just be around consistently or stay gone, because I'm tired of this. I can't deal with this. I'm tired of defending your behavior or anything like that, because I love you.
Wow.
And because I was telling you, like, Mom, I'm good. There was always a sense in me that I felt like I was cared for and taken care of. Like, just maybe that was something spiritual that I just didn't tap into at a younger age. But I just had this sense of understanding on some level that my needs like that would be met. I will be okay. And I was telling you, like, I don't need you to provide these things for me or anything like that right now, because I have these things. What I need is a mother. I need you to be consistent. And I gave you an ultimatum. I was just like, I need you to know. And I said, right now in this conversation, tell me if this is our last conversation or if I'll hear from you in the next couple of days.
Yes, I remember that like it happened yesterday, you know. And I am so thankful that I allowed you to be able to talk to me,
Hmm.
because I needed to hear that from you. And I heard you. I heard the urgency. I heard it all. And I want to say you never had to say that again.
No. No.
um,
That was a huge accomplishment, because even before that, even when we were living with Mama, and you could be gone for a whole season or two. Like, it could be spring and you'd be like, oh, okay, I'll be right back, and maybe you'd be back around the end of November, or at least by
right,
Christmas, you
right.
know
Yeah.
so it wasn't new, but I was definitely exhausted.
As you should have been. As you should have been. I'm just glad at 14 you had the courage to say that to me, because only you could have had me do a whole 360-degree circle. Only you could have done that. I'm saddened that I didn't have the tools at that time to do it on my own.
Hmm.
Um, yes, I heard you, and to the best of my ability, I tried to. From that point on, you heard my voice on a regular basis.
Hmm.
You know, I tried to keep a phone, and because it was important. I was doing the best I could, doing what I was doing, and that was
Meeting my
being,
request. Yeah.
yes, yes, but also in the process of doing what I was doing. When I said that, I was referring to, I was still so in the grips of my addiction.
Yeah, Mommy, I understood that part. I'm sorry if what I respond the way I responded didn't show that. But yeah, I knew you were talking when you said doing what you're doing. I knew you meant going through your addiction and trying to navigate that based on what I had said to you and expressed, because of, the impact of what I shared with you and what it meant. I think you knew that you couldn't continue to operate that exact way and for it to be okay. So even if you could not shake your addiction, you could at least stay in contact.
Right.
Because I realized, I mean, you did share that it was shame, that you said, I wanted to call Keisha, but then when another day would pass and another day would pass, it would just get harder and harder. But
Wow.
when you start implementing things day by day, new things, it gets easier and easier.
You are
Right?
so right.
Yeah.
You are so right. And that's, you said it. And I haven't felt that way in a long time.
Hmm.
Uh, like it's been over 12 years now. I haven't felt that way because I didn't do something at the time I was supposed to. I let a day or two go, and then it just wouldn't happen. You know, I have much better tools to navigate today and to pick up when I'm, feeling this or that way, that I don't have to go that far down, you
And
know.
and that's key, Mom. So what you just said was the whole thing. It's not to say that these feelings are going to dissipate and just magically be gone. right? You learn how to maneuver with them. I say, like people get so caught up in being happy. And I'm just like, I mean, I get this idea, don't get me wrong, but I'm a full and dynamic person. I have a wide range of emotions and I'm not afraid of navigating them all. Because typically our emotional responses to things is a navigating system to help us get closer to where we really want to be so that we're in full alignment.
Exactly, exactly. Because we're going to feel all the God given feelings, such as we're going to feel fear, we're going to feel anger, we're going to feel hurt, um, all those things. And we're going to feel happy and sad as well. But you're right. And today I have better tools to cope with things that just come up, you know, on life terms.
Yeah, and
You
it
know,
doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's a reflection of having a bad life if you're not constantly smiling and happy. You know what I mean? Like, because people will smile and happy, and it doesn't mean that they're genuinely feeling these things. It's important to let down the mask and to be real with ourselves about what we're actually feeling so that we don't have to turn to these different coping mechanisms that are counterintuitive and counterproductive to how we actually want to live our lives.
yeah, you're right. And a lot of people, it's all about the persona, what you look like.
And I'm thankful that, you know, that wasn't the case in our relationship, like, because you can have parents out here that are doing the wrong things or people in relationship just doing the wrong things and still because of the role that they play in your life, they expect that you respond to them a certain way, regardless of the effort or the work that they're putting into the relationship. It's just like, well, I'm your mother and this is that. you know
Mm,
you didn't you
mm,
didn't you didn't go about it in that approach, and I have a lot of respect for that, and I appreciate it. Allow us to, because you're vulnerable with me and I'm also vulnerable with you. It's a safe place for both of us because we're talking it out, we're learning and we're growing, we're implementing new tools and we're figuring it out along the way. And like we said, we may not get it in the first conversation, second conversation, shit, it might take a whole nother year for us to really
for
fully
real.
impact it. Well, unpack it. I feel
Exactly.
unpack. Why am I so tongue tied? But anyway, you get what I'm saying, So, and that's evolution, that's evolving, that's beauty, that's work in progress.
That's growth. Yes, yes. And you hit it on the nail. We're not going to always get it after the first few conversations, or tries, and it doesn't mean that we're not working effortlessly at it, you know. Um, we just gotta keep going at it, and
And along the
resiliency.
Yes, and learn along the way how to communicate better. So we can communicate at a very basic level where I just say something, or then I can really examine myself and say, how can I navigate this conversation when I'm really addressing my feelings, my needs, my requests, and not putting it on you? Like, well, you do this or you do that. Like, what is it that I'm needing right now? What is it that I'm really feeling so that we can get deeper into the heart of what's happening, right? Rather than just trying to just talk about it and it not being effective communication.
Yes, and that's key. What you just said. That is the key to getting to the heart of it, and that's the way I think our normal conversations always flow. It's about not like what can Keisha do when I'm addressing you. It's what I can do.
Hmm.
It's what I can do to make things better. Because uh, it's a saying that goes, "It starts and ends with me."
Mm.
And I really get that today.
Mom, do you remember? Oh God, I'm so glad you said that because I remember when it hit me, when that very thing hit me, and I said, I need to talk to my mom about this. We were outside of the apartment building, sitting in the car, and this was while you were still in the midst of your addiction. And I was fully aware of this, right? And I just said, you know what, Ma, I'm letting you off the hook. Um, yes, some of the things you've done, the choices that you've made have had a huge impact on me, but I am an adult now and I'm responsible for myself. And where I go from now is my responsibility, you know? And I said, I'm not going to kick you when you're down, with my anger and things like that, trying to fight you about it. I realized to some degree that you were struggling, not completely, but what I'm saying here is that I wasn't putting so much focus on you. I said, I need to focus on myself, because regardless of whatever changes she makes or she does not make, if I want to see something different for and within myself, I'm going to have to make these steps toward it. It has nothing to do with what she's doing in her life right now. At this point, I am responsible. Do you remember that?
Yes. And, I want to say, we had that shortly after that conversation, or nearing that conversation, was when things started to turn for me as well.
Well, no, not that I remember. Well, you know what? I guess you're right, because if I think back, we were in front of the high rise, so you were about to move and go through that whole last year or two when you started to move
Mm-hmm.
into like crack and things like that. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
in the grand scheme of your addiction,
Yes,
yes, this was toward the end. Yes, ma'am, it was.
yes, yes, yes. Wow. You know, um, it's funny, not ha ha funny, of course. The things, that I had to go through to get to where I am now, you know, because Keisha, people who meet me today, they are oblivious to all of
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
you know. And if I was to mention it, they wouldn't believe
Hmm.
it. No. Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're all on a journey. And that makes me think of when, so there's a guy that I went to middle school with. He was a neighbor with where I was living, and I think I came back a few years later, and I saw him, and my cousin was like, "Do you know who this is?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, from next door." And I reached out to give him a hug, and he was like, "Oh, you're giving out hugs?" You know what I mean? So we kept in contact, and he's just like, "You just seem so different." And I was like, "Really?" I didn't even realize how different I was along my journey. You
Right.
know? Yeah, so that was funny. And even like pictures of me back then, people wouldn't believe it was me. And I was like, gosh, I guess I just carried my energy was so different. Um, we can always make strides to getting closer and closer to who we want to be. Keep elevating our highest version of ourselves to continue to see ourselves expanding and growing. And we just have to start from where we are.
Yes.
That's what we do. We start from where we are.
Yes, we do. We start from where we are.
I appreciate you for making time to listen in to this episode of Unshaved. Thank you. I genuinely hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have questions or suggestions for topics to explore, please email unshaved.podcast@gmail.com. Be sure to indicate if you'd like to be mentioned if your feedback or questions are addressed. I take it that you've enjoyed the content since you've made it this far. Depending on the platform you're hearing this on, let me know so we can really engage with one another. So drop a comment, click the star, download, subscribe, applaud, click the like button, and share this with others. Unshaved is on Facebook and Instagram. Also, you can show the show some love through donations on Anchor. Last but not least, remember you can turn on your notifications so you'll know when we're back with new episodes. Till then, let's continue to live with love and light.